You are watching Acho.G Steve.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about 5 most brutal African leaders and how they met their karma. I mean, 5 men we no get joy at all. These na leaders we decide to put them from day one. They decide from day one to put them for their citizen bodies woto without joy. Well, number 1 on the list is Nigeria's own Sani Abacha. I'm sure the name definitely rings a bell like Sele. The Nigerian-born dictator and kleptomaniac took over power in the year 1993 on the 17th of November through the barrel of a gun, and his reign of terror began, as he also made use of this period to starch Nigerian Commonwealth abroad, that even years after his death, we are still getting refunds from our Zadi beyond. I mean, years after this man she don't pass, Nigerian government still they collect back some of the bread when he go store for foreign bakeries. So what I mean by foreign bakeries, I mean foreign banks. Nigerians were to get a little taste of the Hitler in Abacha on the 17th of July 1993. Where over 65 bodies of demonstrators in Lagos were left mutilated by rampaging soldiers on orders from Abacha himself. The sad event of the 17th of July was an evidence, even to the blind, that Nigerians don't enter one chance bus. During his reign of terror, it was a capital offense to stand against Abacha's infamy, as his words were law, and he was considered infallible. Few that stood up against his tyranny were brought down like a pack of cards. The ordinary man trembled at the mention of the name Abacha. Children ran into their mother's arms at the mention of his name, while the men also hide their face in shame as they await a savior who was never showing up. During this era, prisons across the country were filled up to their maximum capacity as more facilities were built to accommodate his political adversary. Rather than building basic infrastructure for the citizens, activists such as Femi Falana, Gani Fawemi, and even Olusegun Obasanjo were all incarcerated. Nigeria under Sani Abacha was no double mafia state, as houses of oppositions were burned to the ground by the junta. During his reign of terror, many fled the country as Abacha, with all audacity, trampled on the rights and civil liberty of everyone. Abacha, the emperor of Nigeria, was no doubt a god in his own eyes, who felt he would live forever until karma showcase. And when karma showcase, 2 seconds everywhere burst. The blood of Ken Soro-Wiwa and the Ogoni 8, among others, cried up to the heavens. And you all know the Apple story. Karma came, and as the sun set, the most brutal man in Nigeria was no more. Hey viewers, how do you think Abacha died? Please kindly comment below. Notwithstanding, there's a lot of controversy surrounding Abacha's death. Number 2 on our list of Africa's 5 most brutal leaders and how they made their karma is no other person than Idi Amin Dada of Uganda. Amin was a man of great charisma mixed with a touch of brutality. He was a man of many titles: Field Marshal, DSO, VC, Conqueror of the British Empire, and a lot more. During his reign of treachery in Uganda, many died, and just like Abacha, thousands fled abroad to safety, some never to return. Amin seized power in the year 1971 from Abuti in a bloodless coup, technically aided by the US, UK, and the Israelis, whom he later turned against. Amin was a killing machine who was highly efficient in the art and wasn't always in a state of mind to hesitate when unleashing his terror. Those who opposed Amin disappeared into oblivion, with bodies dumped in the forest or thrown into rivers as a sumptuous meal for the crocodiles. During his dark reign, he turned a blind eye to over 500,000 extrajudicial killings. Even the devil self could is shock. I mean the devil self in a land walk from Idi Amin Dada of Uganda. Many, however, considered him a great African leader. Well, it depends on whatever shapes their opinion and thought patterns. But karma came on the 16th of August 2003. Amin, the great dictator, stared the reaper in the eyes. The most brutal despot in modern history paid his dues. He slipped into coma as he held on to life, still battling with the reaper. The family pleaded with Yoweri Museveni to allow him return to his country home. But Museveni said if he should allow Amin to return back from exile to Uganda, he will have to answer for all his sins which he had committed. Finally, behold, the conqueror of England was removed from life support, and he died in the King Faisal Special Hospital in Saudi Arabia and was buried in Ruwais Cemetery in Jeddah, 1,000 miles away from home, as a fugitive. Number 3 on Africa's 5 most brutal leaders or dictator is Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor, the brutal leader of Liberia, was born on 28th of January 1984. And growing up as a child, even a prophet could never have known that someday the innocent-looking lad would turn into a ravaging monster that would put pain in the hearts of thousands of his fellow countrymen in Liberia. The warlord served as the 22nd Liberian president from 2nd August 1997 until his resignation in August 2003. During his reign, thousands of people were forced into modern slavery to dig out diamonds, which was a major source of funding for his murderous army. Number 4 on the list is no other person but Colonel Gaddafi. Well, putting Gaddafi on the list certainly might come with a lot of mixed reactions from viewers. Some felt he was unjustly kicked out of power by the Western powers that be. But the truth be told, Gaddafi actually ruled Libya with an iron fist. And definitely, there were several cases of human rights abuses during the reign of the strong man of Libya. The Western media called him the camel-riding lunatic in the desert. Gaddafi knew he had fallen out of favor with the Western power bloc. So the man come finally change his mind, say anybody with the West they against, na the same person, him go dey support from now henceforth, back to back. Now so the gbege take start. Why putting Gaddafi on the list of brutal leaders in Africa seems to be a bit difficult is that despite the known fact that he was ruling the country with no joy by maiming and silencing even the smallest opposition before they materialized into a wildfire, he was doing more for his country in terms of development, education, and employment than most peace-loving African leaders. Can you imagine? The literacy level was one of the highest in Africa. Unemployment was at its lowest. Not until the revolution broke out that real war crimes were actually carried out by the administration of Gaddafi. Gaddafi's long reign, which he seized power in 1969, was to come to a sad and brutal end for him and his family after an intense fighting. The NATO Western-backed rebels were able to subdue Gaddafi's troops. For the final time, the body of the once charismatic and egocentric Gaddafi was dragged on the street of Libya by rebel forces like a common dog. His death sent a shockwaves all around Africa to every leader who had been holding on to power for so long. But some were determined to stay there, just like ants glued to a sugar box. Is there any glimpse of hope for Africa?